around, everyone.
Let's get dangerous.
This is so cool.
I know.
It feels so right.
It's Ciely.
He's opening our minds to new ideas. Kill him!
Who is that guy?
Your mama.
You just made the list.
Oh, wait, you're serious? Let me laugh even harder.
It's all in football.
Sure, we talk about it all the time. Really? No. Turn.
What is up, you ducks? It is All in Football on a special Monday because the NFL draft is in the books. Everybody's excited about their new team in real life, and everybody's excited about their shiny new toys in fantasy football. And that's what we're here to talk about. We're here Friday to recap the first round of the NFL draft and what that means for fantasy. Yeah, exactly. I'm Beaker.
It's one of the busiest weekends to be a football analyst, so we'll give you a little bit of a pass there.
It was like the past 4 days, and I'm wrapping up projections over the next day or two for the magazine, and the projections will be live early this year on the site. But yes, so far there's new rankings over in The Athletic, new dynasty rankings over at The Athletic. So you have everything that you possibly need for both of those, including, if you missed it, the draft recap for every pick and the grades that I give out. I give out redraft and dynasty grades for all the skill picks. So if you're on the toilet, or if you want something to sleep to help you get to sleep in bed, something to read, go over there. There's a lot of it over there. But we're here to talk about it again. Week one. Day one. God, I can't even talk.
Oh, baby, Jake is drunk.
I know. Should we talk about Evan Ingram? I'm going to take a nap. You do the rest of the show. That's how we'll go from here. Day one, we covered on Friday. Days 2 and 3, we are going to cover now. We are probably not going to get to everybody. That's impossible because there were a lot. And let's just get to it right away. Meaning, I hope you enjoyed your weekend, by the way. Also, the Rangers sweeping the Capitals was a lot of fun for me as well.
Yeah,
so,
it was. And our subs.
Did you take that plus 500 line?
Yeah, we had them to win the series in 2 games. Like, we chucked 2 units on it. It was massively juiced, but we had the sweep at 5-1 too. So it was a rough day in the NHL yesterday, so it was really nice to get that.
The wife is leaving. I was waving goodbye. You can't even see the picture. I'm gonna have to maybe move it. They're like my name thing. Love you too. The picture with the infinity that we got from the glass that we poured together at the wedding is like
nice.
in the corner, which you can't. Of course, see, this is I find these things out. Anyway. Started things off in round 2, where we joked about it on Friday, and I said, I watched them trade out of the pick again, but the Bills finally did take a wide receiver. The money was very, very much juiced to the minus line, and they did it anyway. They took Keon Coleman, maybe a surprise to some. The big thing is we know the upside and the downside of Keon Coleman because we can just compare him to one player's upside and downside in his NFL career, which is now over. Kenny Golladay. Like, that's the great. That's also the bad. We saw how poorly it could go. Now, that being said, on paper, as we evaluate, there's opinions that Keon Coleman is better than Kenny Golladay, so he should not hit that floor, especially the first pick of the second round. The Bills turned to him to replace Stephon Diggs. So this is a 2-part question for you, Meaney. Is one, do you think he immediately becomes the number one? Because Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel are the next 2 up. They brought in Curtis Samuel. Joe Brady has the history with him from 2020. And then, of course, you go further down the depth chart. They do have 2 solid tight. I'm saying solid because Kincaid's great, but Knox can be a red zone threat. Then we all loop in the fact of Keon Coleman should catch touchdowns, but also Josh Allen calls his own number plenty. So I say all that say is, one, is he the number one for the Bills? And if so, actually, even if he's not, do you think top 30 is in play for him as a rookie because of his landing spot?
I definitely think top 30 is in play for him year end. I don't think he'll be the number one right away. I think that it'll take a little bit of time, but I think he certainly has the most upside of any wide receiver in this offense. I like Curtis Samuel, just like Joe Brady loves himself some Curtis Samuel, and I'm sure he's going to be reliable in fantasy as a low-end wide receiver 3 or flex, but I think Coleman has the upside here. This is the big body wide receiver that can, overtake a game. So I think for me personally, thinking right now in my redraft rankings, after Marvin Harrison Jr., we'll get to another guy, but he's right there as the second wide receiver among rookies taken off the board. And I'll reference the serious draft that we did yesterday a couple times just to kind of give a feel where he went and see if you think that's fair or not, but he was an 8th round pick here, just kind of after JSN, Romeo Doubs, Deontay Johnson. Before there was a little bit of a rookie run after that, but before Worthy, Lad McConkey, and even Shakir, who's also a member of the Bills.
And I'm assuming ahead of Odunze, correct?
Yes. Actually,
Okay.
no.
No.
Odunze went ahead of him, which I thought was a bit of a reach. In the 7th, he went ahead of Hopkins and Godwin.
Really? I'm already going to be. I
me.
can see the load man on Odunze. Well, not the load
Yeah.
man, but one of. And this will come back around. But
Same.
I have Odunze at 61 behind. Oh, by the way, Jackson, Smith, and Jigba, because we just did this last year with Smith and Jigba, and we're doing it again. Smith and Jigba is going into his 2nd season. We saw that his talents, translated to the NFL. We assume Odunze's will. But why? Now, this is redraft only. I could understand taking Odunze in rookie or dynasty because you have a better quarterback attached to him for conceivable future and all that type of stuff. So you have the better quarterback, blah, 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 younger. But point being, I have Smith and Jigba at 49. I have Joshua Palmer in front of Odunze because I actually have McConkey and Joshua Palmer because it could be either one of them. Hell, it could just be Quentin Johnston, who I still have behind Odunze. But he's 62 for me. I'm going to have 0 Odunze.
I'm on the same page as you. Yeah, and I think the JSN thing is a really good example. Is a rookie wide receiver who a lot of people liked, including both of us. I mean, amazing route runner, great hands, showed up in the combine. Just in a situation where he's clearly behind Lockett and DK Metcalf. And this is the exact same thing, right? Like DJ Moore is not coming off the field, and Keenan Allen, whether he's a member of the Bears after this final year or not, like he is there. He's the veteran presence for a young rookie wide receiver that's not going to leave the field either. Then you have Cole Kmet, and you also have multiple running backs who can catch the ball out of the backfield. So yeah, I'm totally with you. I think Odunze, I'm not going to call him a bust, but like for a 7th round pick, it's a little steep.
It is. And actually, so I'll tee it up for you to see if you can guess. For me, Keon Coleman's actually my 4th wide receiver, rookie. So obviously Marvin Harrison's number 1. We've already covered and talked about. Malik Neighbors is number 2 for me. There's somebody number 3. It's not Odunze. It's obviously not Keon Coleman. It was somebody also drafted in this round.
Is it by the Steelers? I
meant this round, like with those other 1st-round wide receivers. He was a 1st-round wide receiver. We've already talked about him on Friday.
Oh yeah, Brian Thomas is Brian Thomas.
I would still go Brian Thomas. I think Brian Thomas will put up Calvin Ridley's numbers from last year. But again, we're talking day 2 or 3, and you brought up one of the names right after that. Lad McConkey, my dude, heads to the Chargers in play to be their number 1. But I'm not just writing off Quentin Johnston yet. But again, we all know this is a different regime. They're not the ones that made the Quentin Johnston pick. But you do have Quentin Johnston. You do have Joshua Palmer. They drafted McConkey, but they didn't stop with McConkey. They got 2 flyers later on. McConkey, again, same question I just asked you about Keon Coleman. What are your odds that you think that he's the number 1 from day 1? And even if not, I don't even say like top 50, top 40. Well, let's not play this game. We have a lot to digest still, but let's just put it this way. How would you rank the hierarchy of the Chargers wide receivers as of today? Is it McConkey, then the rest because of the potential and they drafted him in the 2nd round? Or would you still go Palmer because we've seen it, then McConkey? Or would you even go Johnston? Because again, we were talking about a 1st-rounder last year. And year 2, we talked about it briefly on Friday, and remind everybody the article is on the site from last year. But year 1, wide receiver rookies taken in the 1st round hit at about 50% rate. Their biggest jump, I'm talking about 1st round and everybody else, rookie wide receivers as a whole, the biggest jump for rookie wide receivers isn't year 2 to 3 anymore. It's actually year 1 to 2. The biggest jump is from 1 to 2. So I say like Marvin Mims, Quentin Johnston, all these guys who were super exciting last year and that busted. But anyway, so just throwing that out there. How would you rank the 3 as of today?
I would rank the McConkey, Johnston, and Palmer. I think Johnston and Palmer are a little bit closer. Yeah, Palmer last, and I mean it's probably the wrong call. That's probably like a quote unquote bold take. Is Palmer's just because like Palmer's the guy that we've seen it from. Like Palmer, we've seen nice moments from Palmer. He's stepped up when Keenan and Mike Williams have been hurt. He's familiar with Justin Herbert. But again, you said it perfectly. This is a new offense. Like they're not married to Joshua Palmer or Quentin Johnston, and I believe more in Quentin Johnston. I believe in his ceiling a little bit more than Palmer. And if they were like, oh man, we got 2 studs here in Palmer and Johnston, like they wouldn't have drafted 3 wide receivers or 2 or 3. I really like McConkey's landing spot. I know you like him a lot as well, but I think he can step in and be the number one for Justin Herbert right away in the slot. There should be a role for him. As much as this team is going to run the football, we know that they are going to run the football. They still are going to pass the ball with Justin Herbert. Like it's the NFL. You're going to have to throw the football. So it may take a little bit of time. Yeah, maybe we'll see McConkey get 6 or 7 of those targets in the slot. And yeah, like Quentin Johnson's still pretty raw. Like what we saw from him last year, there's still some things that he needs to fix up in his game. So we can't just say that he's a solidified number one in this offense.
That's true. So before we get to the rest of the wide receivers, I forgot.
Would you rank them? I need to know.
How would I rank them? Two different things. So for pure upside, I would go McConkey, Johnston, Palmer, because I would chase the upside. And you know how I feel about McConkey. And I actually do think Quentin Johnston can still be the guy. I think Quentin Johnston still has top 30 talent. It's just whether or not it hits. And then the same thing we said about Johnston last year is he was raw, needed to acclimate to the NFL. Obviously didn't happen. The brief time we saw him, I mean, what we all talk about, the drops and being in the wrong place a couple times. So even if they put it this, if McConkey and Johnston both hit, I'm going to want the one that's more like a potential Stephon Diggs than the one that's potentially more like Brandon Cooks. You see what I'm saying? Like, I want the one that I can rely on every single week. I don't have a problem with a wide receiver 3, and I'm talking about good Brandon Cooks, even wide receiver 2. I don't have a problem with guys scoring 25 one week and 4 the next. I just don't want all 3 of my wide receivers to be like that. And then the pure ceiling I still think is McConkey. As I was about to say, like, we're just not only talking rookies. Could have led with the breaking news, because breaking news is Rico Dowdle. That I wish I could see like where it went, because during the draft, everybody's sitting there like, well, Jerry Jones, F them running backs. Like, he don't want any. And then the draft ended, still didn't want any. And then I'm looking at undrafted free agent signings, still doesn't want any, because what everybody speculated ended up happening. Rico Dowdle is back to being at least in a timeshare, because Zeke is back with the Cowboys. So, Zeke or Dowdle? Are you going right back to Zeke? Zeke is still not 30 years old for as long as he feels like he's been around. He feels like he's like 34. He's 28. He's actually younger than Austin Eckler, by the way, just to kind of give you an idea of where he is. I might have to play a game one day and say, like, can you find where things went? Like, do you remember the circle of differences? I mean, you'd be able to circle the entire screen right now. Yeah. You know what? It's sidebar altogether. I have a box sitting over there of like all the Funkos that I'm going to give them away. I'm going to give them away to listeners and viewers and stuff like that. But the way that you have to do it is because everybody's only listening in this time of the season and nobody's watching. You don't even have to watch this live. Go back to the YouTube comments, whoever you're out there. Subscribe and rate, but like just drop in the comments anything, like your favorite rookie, what Funko you think is awesome or terrible or whatever, or sorry, Saquon Barkley is no longer part of the Giants and that Funko's gone. And I'm just going to start giving some of those away. I have like big ones of the Green Lantern versus Batman, I think. It was like with the crossover shit. Like I got a whole box that's hidden way over there. But
say the setup, new setup looks fantastic, by the way. But yeah, hop on over to the YouTube page, smash the like button, give a comment. Jake gives
just comment. Yeah. You can even be like, your hair is stupid. Cover it underneath that hat, but I don't care. Whatever. So I originally had Dowdle at 29 because I was ranking as if no Zeke. I mean, we expected it, but again, like there's things we expect that I'm just not going to rank until it happens. But Dowdle is at 29. He was in front of Austin Eckler in that timeshare, in front of Zach Moss, because if you told me Dowdle with the backfield versus Zach Moss splitting, I do think actually splits more than people might realize with Chase Brown, and go down from the list. So anyway, Rico Dowdle at 29. But now where does he fall? Are both Cowboy running backs behind both Steelers running backs, behind both Titans running backs? Because I think both are going to fall in that range for me now that Zeke is there.
Yeah, Zeke would be, I would rank him ahead of Rico.
Dowdle, yeah.
Yeah, just obviously given the fact of he's been there before. He knows the offense. He's the goal line back. He's the guy that they missed last year at the goal line. I mean, Tony Pollard, the second most red zone rushing attempts last year behind Christian McCaffrey, and he had 6 rushing touchdowns, and I think they all came in like 3 games. So he's going to get a lot of opportunities. I would have I would have them. I think I got to have Najee ahead of him. He's got to be ahead for me. I'd say behind Pollard, but in that range, like mid to late 20s.
And 2 times shares than the touchdowns? I would actually take Zeke over Pollard at this point.
Yeah.
Zeke
I know,
over
it's just
Chubb,
super
not knowing what
close.
his situation is.
Yeah, I can get behind Zeke over Chubb, like coming off
Zeke
really
versus
significant injury. It's like a
Gus
mid. It's like
Edwards?
it's like definitely in that range of like a low end RB2 and just solid flex play.
Well,
But
so
I
I
think
set
I'd
all this
lean
up to say I
Gus,
think
man.
really I'd actually go Zeke, just because we assume the whole situation and that. But what if J.K. Dobbins is healthy? And then I like
We
Rasheem
played that game
Ali.
before, but yeah.
What have we done with the Ravens for so many years? I know, again, a new regime, but in like another situation with the Ravens is now they have Ali. I could see Ali being better than both Chargers, and like just to pull these two teams together. Like it would have shocked me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bet on that, like Derrick Henry. But if Derrick Henry got hurt on like game 3, I think Ali
Sure.
could step up. So like I'm just saying, like there's a lot of like where I could see the Chargers backfield replicating old Ravens, and the fact that the third option might end up being the best one from what we feel. Like honestly, like let's go back to it with the Chargers. The one Vidal. Like I think Vidal can end up being the most valuable Chargers running back.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, whatever Harbaugh does at the draft, you got to pay attention to, right? Again, he's
Earl,
just
then
setting
let me
up a
toss
new
you
situation.
one. This last
What
one.
what we will know about Zeke is like the situation is familiar. Like for the hero RB, zero RB target people out there, like drafters out there, he's going to be a good target for you because he's going to go after the 8th round.
Zeke or your boy Javonte Williams? That's the last one I was going to stop on.
Man, I really want to say Javonte, but there's just so much going on in that backfield, and they also drafted a guy, so I'll lean Zeke.
Okay.
He's going to be the back that nobody really wants, but again, he's probably going to fall into 8 rushing touchdowns and all the goal line work on a team that's going to finish top 3 in offense.
That puts him at 25. Just so you know.
One RB2.
Yeah. So, which puts like Rico Dowdle behind Khalil Herbert, J.K. Dobbins, Jerome Ford, Kendra Miller.
Yeah.
Dowdle. What about this though? Dowdle in front of rookie Blake Corum, rookie Marshawn Lloyd, Tank Bigsby, Ray Davis. That feel about right to you?
Yeah. I mean, I was really looking forward to seeing where Lloyd went and Corum went, but I don't think it does anything for you. It doesn't do anything for me. I drafted Kyron Williams yesterday in that serious draft in the 3rd round. He goes obviously after the big, the alphas, but maybe he's not a guy that touches the ball 22, 23 times like he did at the final few weeks of the season. We were talking about him in CMC in terms of touches, but I still think he's the guy. Like Corum doesn't seem like anything but, a handcuff. And Lloyd, man, I don't know what you feel about Lloyd, but when I watch his film, I'm like, man, this guy's good. And then you look at his numbers, and his numbers don't jump off the page, but he's had so many injuries. But he's one of those guys that is just extremely explosive. He just make things happen. But where does he get touches in this backfield with Jacobs bringing him in and him averaging like 20 touches per game over the last 3 years? Plus, they still have AJ Dillon on the squad. So I just didn't really like those landing spots, but those are 2 really good backs.
I think Lloyd immediately gets past AJ Dillon as the backup, and I don't necessarily think that the Packers will use Jacobs the same way that the Raiders did.
The Raiders, as a pass catcher, no?
Probably. No, I still as a pass catcher. I just think that Jacobs settles into the Aaron Jones workload, where it's 200-ish carries, and then the workload in the passing game, which is also muted a little bit, which puts Lloyd in play as the A.J. Dillon, as the good. Like, A.J. Dillon was good for about that year, maybe 2 years, a big disappointment. But why were we drafting A.J. Dillon is because he could get it split in some weeks, especially the 6-team heavy bye weeks. He could be an RB3 in some leagues. And then if anything were to happen to Jacobs has been hurt. And if anything were to happen to Aaron Jones, we were excited about A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon could be a league winner. You know how many times people said that?
Oh, yeah.
So I believe Marshawn Lloyd and his talent. Like, if you told me Josh Jacobs got hurt and A.J. Dillon's a non-factor, as I expect it to work out, like if you told me depth chart is Jacobs, Lloyd, Dillon, week 1, Jacobs hurt week 3, I'd be blow your entire fab like Kyron Williams last year. Now, not top 5 necessarily, but I think Lloyd would be in play as a low-end RB1 definitively. With Corum, it's kind of the same thing. I think Corum could sprinkle in a little bit more than we've seen from McVay. This is why I set this up, because this is perfect. Now we're talking about these running backs that were drafted on day 2. By the way, round 4 was the running back round on day 3, just like all of them. But with Corum, I think that you might see McVay realize and know what we know is that Kyron Williams getting 250, 300 touches, you might break him. He might just like fall
100%.
apart. He'd be like Lego bricks trying to throw into the field, and they scatter all over the place. But I think Corum seeds some of those, or pulls some of those touches away. Williams seeds some to him. But again, if Kyron Williams were to get hurt, McVay probably has no problem turning to Corum as that bell cow, giving him 20 touches.
Hell yeah.
Him with 20, 25. And I'm not even the biggest Corum fan, but he was in my tier 2. Some people got mad that he wasn't in tier 1. Whatever. He's still tier 2, and he's at the top of the tier 2. That workload with the Rams, I think you would agree with me, top 15 minimum if Kyron Williams got hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the Rams offense, I 100% believe in. I think it's going to be a really good offense again, as long as Matthew Stafford is healthy. They did a good job of like kind of piecing the offensive line together last year and this year in the offseason as well. And I mean, we've seen this from McVay every year. I think he's drafted a running back. I mean, Akers and Henderson and Kyron and now Corum. Like, there's even more guys that I'm not even thinking about that he drafted as running backs. He's always taking flyers on running backs, but he's like, yeah, he's set up to be like he's a workhorse back. We saw it last year. He was named the best finisher in college. He's the only guy to score a touchdown in every game. He had 28, 27 on the ground. He'd get you a short yardage, tough yards, whatever. His pass blocking may be questionable, but Harbaugh put him in situations to protect, so he must have trusted him. And yeah, I think because for me, Kyron, like I wasn't really believing what he was doing only because of like the body type. I'm like, man, can this guy really hold up? And the injury happened early and he held up in the last half. But that's probably McVay's thinking here is maybe we ease off a little bit. We can use Corum in certain situations. And if anything does happen, you're right. Corum is a guy that I would say is a rock solid RB2. Yeah, but I think Lloyd's ceiling is a touch higher.
Would you take Corum or Zeke in Dynasty?
I would take Corum. I'd say Zeke.
Corum or Lloyd in Dynasty?
I'd take Lloyd. Yeah.
Has Corum or Lloyd in Dynasty? There you go, straight up.
I would take Lloyd.
Corum? Oh, wow. And you know I love Lloyd. Yep. I would actually take Corum just because of the landing spot. I think, only because.
Think long term, though. Think long term. Like, be part of the Packers offense.
Running backs, I'm not going to go past 3 years in my mind in Dynasty. That's my personal skew. Like, in running backs in Dynasty, I'm trying to trade them all the time. I don't even care if you're 26. I'm trying to trade.
That's why I'm not like Zeke. Like,
3-year window. And I'm thinking, who on these teams, granted Stafford could be done in 3 years, but again, like between the two, who's the bigger threat to get hurt and potentially lose the job? Sure. I love some Kyron Williams, you know that, but between Kyron Williams and Jacobs, it's Kyron Williams.
Are these guys, and I do agree with that, are these guys in Williams and Jacobs still rock solid RB1s for you? Or are they still guys that you would feel comfortable taking as your RB1 in drafts?
Yeah, you're setting up my questions now? You're just taking over the show?
I am, because, people want to know your take, too. They don't care what I have to say.
No, people want to know if you've ever seen the rain. Actually, right now, I do have Kyron Williams. He actually finally slid back for me. He was not number 5, or is not number 5 anymore. I still have him inside the top 10. I still have him at 8. I have him 8 in front of Achane, Jacobs, Walker, Pacheco, Cook. He's still there. That's Dynasty, by the way. For redraft, let's slide over to redraft, and I'll tell you, I have him at 6. I go back, like, I understand it's potentially a risk. I understand people are going to say that you're crazy to take him in front of Gibbs. I mean, you're talking about Josh Jacobs behind him, but I go back to, like, well, what if it's still 20 touches a game? Like he's the riskiest of it. Like, you probably have to understand that if you want safer, you could go down to Joe Mixon at 10 on my Texans. Pacheco, you could argue Pacheco's safer at this point. You could argue down this list, but I still take him because he's on the Rams, because he's with McVay, and we are making assumptions as of today that Corum gets some of the work, but just what if he doesn't? If Corum just splits with Ronnie Rivers as the backup? So I get it. It's not the safest, but I would still take Kyron Williams.
Kyron and Jacobs yesterday to start the third round in that draft. Jacobs is like RB7. I think I took Kyron as RB8. So I'm with you. And I think we're going to be alone on the Mixon thing. And I know he was buried in Sleeper. Maybe it's because the app and there hasn't been a lot of drafting because he was buried. Him and Derrick Henry were buried. I ended up taking Henry as my RB2.
Keep talking for everybody watching. Good old Barkley is trying to, as Barkley jumps up here. Hi, Barkley. She's scratching at the back door. She's already gone to the bathroom twice. I don't know what the hell. Like, she's thrown off because the whole weekend. So you keep talking. I'll be right back.
Okay.
You can see the glorious backdrop while I go do this real quickly.
Yes. I'll read off the running backs in the serious draft from yesterday. Ratcliffe led off with CMC. Breece Hall was number 2 overall, not just number 2 back, number 2 pick, which kind of surprised me. And then a run of wide receivers. Then Bijan Robinson to our guy, Michael Floria, the good one. Taylor Gibbs to round out the first round. Then Saquon, the only back taken in the second round, at pick 2.6 there. Yeah, that makes sense. 6th pick in the second round. Then in the third, Jacobs, Kyron Williams, ETN, Rashad White, Devonta Chan. Then Isaiah Pacheco, Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry to me. So my RB2 there with the 9th pick in the 4th round. I thought that was pretty good value. Then great value. And then Walker. And then we get into the 5th round. Only one running back taken in the 5th round is Cook for the Bills. Then we get into the 6th round. A little bit of a run. It goes Montgomery, Kamara, Tony Pollard, Najee Harris. So Mixon still hasn't gone yet. Now we're into the 7th round, which I just feel like is a ton of good value here in the 7th round for running backs.
Did people forget? Was Mixon in a weird spot on the draft board or something like that? Or,
well,
no,
he was a little bit. When I first opened up the Sleeper app, I immediately kind of look at this like who's buried. By the way, Brian Thomas Jr. was like rookie wide receiver 10. I was like, I took him in the draft way ahead of whatever the heck the ADP was for him. So the guys that were buried right away were like Jacobs, Derrick Henry, and Mixon. So I immediately put them all in my queue. I'm like, I'm getting one of these 3 or maybe 2 of these 3 to start wide receiver. So anyways, we get into the 7th round. It's Ramondre, James Conner, Joe Mixon to me. So get him in the 7th as my RB3. Roughly, I wrote him down here just to bring him up to you. RB23 is where he went in the draft. And then Robinson for Washington, Nick Chubb, Zamir White, Swift, Williams. Even Zamir White, I thought was a pretty good value in the mid-20s there. So,
so let's talk about him. There you go. Boom.
Yeah, because he's a big winner.
We are not only talking rookies, we're talking winners, obviously.
Yeah.
And Zamir White came out of this draft as a winner. So did Rico Dowdle until today. And, of course, something could change for Zamir White, although I don't really know what out there is left to worry us too much. I mean, even the running backs that are available in free agency, I don't think there's anybody that's going to be like, oh my gosh, Zamir White is ruined. But Zamir White comes out. You want to talk about workload at hand here. We saw it at the end of the year. And if you want to bring in Joe Mixon to this conversation, a Joe Mixon-like workload and production. And the fact that, like, if you told me Zamir White with 12 touches, part of his timeshare, I'm not going to get too excited because he wasn't efficient on those. But he was Joe Mixon efficient. It was like 3.9, 4, 4.1. It probably comes right around 4 yards a carry. Okay in the passing game, a little bit there. But obviously people are going to be worried about Gardner Minshew being the quarterback. And yes, I said Minshew, not Aiden O'Connell. Like, Aiden O'Connell beats out Minshew, like, good, because Minshew is the floor. Like Aiden O'Connell is better than anybody thought. Like, if Aiden O'Connell is the quarterback and he's worse than Gardner Minshew, and maybe the Raiders try to tank openly, or just like, hey, by the way, we are tanking. We're going for a quarterback next year because we missed out.
And another.
But all that being said, yeah, I'm not that worried about it, but Zamir White's workload right now is off the chart. So let's talk about Zamir White purely for a redraft, and tell me if you think this is crazy. You go back through that list you were talking about. I have James Cook at 18, James Conner at 19, the Jameses, and then Zamir White's at 20, in front of Stevenson, Swift, Montgomery, Mostert, Williams. By the way, timeshare. Not huge ones. Stevenson's the lead of his, so is Swift. But Zamir White's there. And back in front of him, Connor, Cook, Walker, Kamara, Jones, ETN. Like, I can't see myself pushing. Like, that feels high for White, but the volume's going to be there. I can't see myself pushing him higher, but I also can't see I feel like his spot's 20. Like, I don't feel like I'm looking at the names in front and behind him, and I'm like, I don't think you could convince me to put any of them in front of him, and I don't think you could convince me to move any of them behind him. The only one is that if you told me Nick Chubb was 100% by week 1.
Right. Yeah, that's it. The only guys that really stood out to me, and it's just questions, is Nick Chubb and then our guy Ramondre Stevenson, but he's coming off an injury too. He probably is the lead, but who knows? Again, it's a new regime. Antonio Gibson's there as a pass catcher, so maybe Ramondre is not getting as many catches as we've seen him get over the past couple of years. But I'm with you on Zamir. Like, he impressed me too as a running back, not just as a workhorse back and getting all the touches and getting all the catches. Just like impressed me. Like, there was some nice runs from him. I think what I was more impressed was his involvement through the air, like after the catch. So absolutely agree with your ranking, and I'd have him definitely. I would be more interested in him than any back in Chicago, and that's including Swift. I don't care that they signed him. There's a lot going on in Chicago. There's multiple running backs. So we can't say with confidence that Swift is even going to be the goal line back or the third down running back in Chicago. I'm not confident in either of those roles.
So speaking of rookies and injuries and lots of running backs, let's also talk about Jonathon Brooks.
I'm excited.
Jonathon Brooks, best talent before the injury in the draft. No question about it. There's big questions about the injury. Will he be 100% by week 1? I don't necessarily believe so. I think the Panthers got a lot of weapons for Bryce Young. And then, I mean, they got some in the passing game too. They're trying to fix this team. Got some offensive line help. They're trying to, Bryce Young's not dead. His career's not over. Before we give, I went on my rant on SiriusXM. Before we give Sam Darnold his 17th chance to be a starting quarterback, how about we don't pronounce year 1 the end of the career of Bryce Young? All that being said, there were concerns. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Jonathon Brooks. He's going, that Miles Sanders was a bust of a free agent signing for them. Chuba Hubbard outplayed him. Chuba Hubbard ended up being the number 1 for the team, especially towards the end of the season. Miles Sanders was barely getting any work.
Didn't touch the field.
All that being said, this is my comparison of what I gave for Jonathon Brooks. And I know people are going to be like, haha, Jake just wants to do that because it was this guy. It was this guy I missed on. So, let's be clear here. But I said for rookie season comparison, Cam Akers rookie season, and the fact that don't care about Jonathon Brooks, and he might pop off in December because he's not going to be 100% expectedly. Even if he is, why would the Panthers rush him in? The Panthers did this. They can get rid of Miles Sanders next year. He can be the guy in 2025, which is why I still have him as RB15 in Dynasty, which is pretty low for a rookie running back if you think about it. Yeah. But I have him in 15 there, and I have him as an RB4 in redraft just because I don't even think you're going to be able to use him for the first half of the season. Am I crazy? And it could be sooner.
No, it could maybe be a touch sooner, but I think what you said is great. Like, what's the point, right? I mean, you're Carolina. I thought that they had an okay draft. I mean, even getting Brooks, it's like, really, you have so many holes in the team, but they left the draft with skilled players and trying to help out Bryce Young in the offense. I really like Brooks. He is my favorite running back. I think he's out of all the backs, I think he has the best chance to be a bell cow back. I mean, he was limited to 11, 12 games last year. He caught 24 passes. He was awesome before he suffered the ACL injury. All signs point to him being ready to go training camp. But again, to your point, what is the point, right? Ease him in, not just Cam Akers. I was thinking about Akers. I was also thinking about Javonte Williams rookie season too, where both of those guys came on strong in the second half. And also one thing I'll add is, if Todd Canales, who was with Tampa and was with Seattle before as a nice run calling head coach, play caller, if he decides to give, I don't think it's going to happen right away, but think about it in the second half, a Rashad White type workload where he's getting all of the touches and catches of the backfield, this guy may just be, a rock solid RB2 for you in the second half of the season. So I like the landing spot. Line needs work. They'll run Miles Sanders in the ground in preseason in the first couple weeks of the season. But yeah, he's automatically the best running back in the room, and I don't think there's any question. So I love I don't know where you have him in redraft, but I'm kind of interested in if I can leave with him being my 4th back, I'd be thrilled. I don't know if that's possible.
So I have him right at RB40. So to give you an idea, the names he's there with, Hubbard is in front of him. But, I mean, Hubbard's only in the 30s because I don't even think this guarantees the job the entire year. Maybe Miles Sanders is back in the mix a little bit more than he was late last year. But anyway, Hubbard's in front of him. Charbonnet, second part of his timeshare, but if something happened, I mean, that's one of the better high-end backups that's out there. Trey Benson's right in front of him because I actually think if you're talking about James Conner, he's never played a full season, I think he could be sprinkled in. Why give James Conner, let's talk about Benson real quickly, why give James Conner the workload he's been seeing in the past when you know he's going to get hurt at point. I say I don't like to predict injuries, especially when I'm doing my projections. But for somebody that's you almost want to guarantee he hasn't played a full season in his career.
We've never seen it. Yeah.
And then if he misses time, Trey Benson, top 15. Look at that depth chart. And Trey Benson, there's a lot of people, including myself, who had him as a tier 1 running back with Brooks. Only because, again, Brooks would have been on an island by himself. He would have been the only tier 1. Maybe I would have tier 1 or 0.5. But anyway, he's up there. And then right behind Brooks is Chase Brown with Zach Moss, Ty Chandler, second piece, Gibson, second piece, Miller, second piece, Dobbins, no idea his health. So yeah, I think it's a fair spot for Brooks.
Yeah, I would agree. Yep.
The question is, let's loop in Dynasty to this. Rookie only, where would you take him? So we got Harris. I'll tell you where I go, and you tell me if you think this is too low. Because, I mean, people are going to lose their mind. My RB1 in Dynasty, not even Superflex, my RB1 in Dynasty is not even top 10. Like, I don't even take Brooks top 10.
No,
I
I
go Harrison, Neighbors, Adunze, Caleb, Jaden, Bowers, Brian Thomas, Xavier Worthy, Keon Coleman, McCarthy, and then Brooks. Again, I devalue running backs in Dynasty more than most people, and I'm a running back guy. How many years have I sat here and say, get a bell cow running back in fantasy? How many years have I sat there and said the NFL needs to give him some respect? But in Dynasty is a different animal, man, and I would take all those quarterbacks, and I'm not even a huge McCarthy fan, but the landing spot is great. And to honestly tell me if, like, I have Brooks and then Drake May at 12, if you wanted to take Drake May, I'd be like, okay. Actually, can I sidebar real quick on you? Because I already went through the whole running back thing, and you're in agreement with me. But one of the things I wrote down when I have, so the Dynasty and Rookie Only are on the site on the same page. As I said, a lot of people in single quarterback leagues, I don't think value quarterbacks as much as they should. Yes, it's 12 teams and everybody's there, so it's Dynasty. But I think there's something to be said for even in single quarterback as having that position taken care of. And I mean taken care of in the fact of, like, you don't even need to have a Patrick Mahomes. But, I mean, go down this list. I'll tell you, like, Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Stroud, Richardson. I wouldn't even put him as in the I feel great about it permanently pick. Burrow wouldn't feel great permanently. Caleb, if I drafted him, I probably would. Herbert, I don't love that they run a lot, but I probably would. But to have like one of those guys, and then of course you're going to have a second one because it's Dynasty, but not have to worry about it every single year, not have to worry about it in trades, not playing the Goff and Tua and Stafford and Daniel Jones game of the world, like those kind of guys. To have one of those, I don't think people give enough value to having a quarterback, like a top 6 or 7 quarterback in single quarterback Dynasty leagues.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's you're not going to be able to compete if you don't have 2 quarterbacks. Like, injuries happen. Last year we saw roughly 65 different quarterbacks start in the NFL last year, and if you didn't have a backup option, you were in a tough spot. And it's not like your regular redraft league where, oh great, I'll go pick up like Brock Purdy and Jordan Love after week 4 or 5, or any of
They're gone.
These guys are gone. Even like the backups that came in, like Minshew. Like, Minshew is rostered in all my Dynasty leagues. Like, he can't, when you are,
it's not like people
suffer an
drop
injury, there's nothing. Like, you are just hoping that the 3rd string quarterback is available on the waiver wire, and everyone's spending fab on Joe Flacco come week 9. You know what I mean? So you need to have, when you were reading off that list, I was thinking May ahead, but it is all about context. Like, for me, if I only had 1 quarterback in a Dynasty league with 12 and if it's 14 or 16, you definitely got to have 2, and you should think about 3. But if it's 12 and I was in like the 10 spot and I only had, I don't know, Jalen Hurts, for example, and Drake May was available to me, I would probably
take Drake.
Yes, I would take that second quarterback. It's a trade chip. It's covering yourself a little bit. It's looking at the future. You also have a running back that is somebody who likes to, or quarterback, sorry, that likes to run. I just called Jalen Hurts a running back. My goodness. Like, Jalen Hurts is a guy who likes to run. And if he suffers an injury, I know, I'm sorry, Jalen. You just want to have your bases covered. It's Dynasty. It's long-term, right? It's just like, maybe it's not like the Falcons taking quarterback, but it's other teams like the Eagles taking a Jalen Hurts when they already had Carson Wentz and everyone lost it. I did a show with you when we were like, wow, what were the Eagles really doing in the second round with Jalen Hurts there? They're covering their bases, thinking long-term. So I think it's key. And there's a question from Justin about Superflex. I think you said it. You kind of glossed over it. Like, if it's Dynasty, Superflex.
My first 6
gotta be all
picks,
quarterbacks.
rookie only, 6 picks. It's no, I actually, this is the first year that I slid 1 into number 2. Yeah, I would actually go. So this is mine: Williams, Harrison, Daniels, Neighbors, McCarthy, May. So I would take Harrison second, and I love Jaden Daniels, but I'm thinking long term, and the realistic situation of being Anthony Richardson, Lamar Jackson, that he's built like Robert Griffin but runs like Cam Newton. Like, there is risk there. If you want to take Daniels too in a Superflex, no question about it. Like, absolutely do it. Marvin Harrison, again, I'm trying to think what's more likely to last 5 years. Marvin Harrison's already inside my top 12 for redraft. He's my number 5 in Dynasty, all wide receivers included. Like, this is all startup Dynasty. He's number 5. So to be able to get that is why. And then Neighbors, again, between Daniels and McCarthy, that's because I think McCarthy and May have some additional picks. Like, what are you doing over here, Coda? Coda's trying to come visit the show. She doesn't usually visit the show. I try to pick her up, but then she like dead weights and like loses her mind because she gets so scared. But let's see if we can get through some more because like we're barely into talking about round 3 players, and we still didn't even finish round 2 for wide receiver. So let me spin it this way for you in round 2. There's 2 more names. Round 2 ended up being relatively quiet after that start. But the NFL feels like it was messing with us as fantasy players, at least like me for like skill picks only. It was like, hey, there's nothing going on. And then 6 of the next 8 picks, skill picks. Like,
yeah.
Seriously? So between 80, Adonai, however you want to, whichever direction you want to go, or Polk with the Patriots, Mitchell landed with the Colts. So Mitchell at best, probably as a rookie, is behind Pittman. If he passed him at some point, skill set wise of Anthony Richardson, I could see that. Like actually, Pittman's barely inside my top 20 for redraft and dynasty, just because I'm concerned about the passing game, 1, and then 2, like stylistically fit when you talk about bringing in Mitchell. I think he's a threat. And then if you balance both, let's say they both get 110 targets. That's probably ceiling if they're sharing 220 targets between the top 2 weapons for Richardson. And then that just kind of, anyway, you get where I'm going with that. But Polk with the Patriots, a lot of people kept bringing this one up and saying like, ooh, this could be interesting. He could be the week 1 starter. He could be the number 1 wide receiver. Although this room is a mess and a lot of openings here. So Mitchell or Polk, if you were forced to pick one out of the second round.
I really want to say 8-9 Mitchell because I like the talent, I like the player, but I don't love the situation here in year 1. It's just like what you said, right? Anthony Richardson's fairly raw. Like we only saw 3.5 games from him. We saw like a 50% completion rate. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done to his game. Plus you have the alpha and Michael Pittman and the alpha running back and Jonathan Taylor. So I can't see a situation where, unless something happened to Pittman, that 8-9 Mitchell would be somebody that we can start with confidence in fantasy. He feels like more of a wide receiver 5 is some sort of stash, but Polk I'm kind of interested in just because of the room. Yeah, the wide receiver room is not great in New England. It's another new regime. I don't believe we'll see May start week 1, whether that does anything for you or not. Jacoby Brissett is a little bit more of a veteran presence. I think he'll be the week 1 starter. Maybe that's okay for some of these young, inexperienced weapons inside the offense.
Baker too, which a lot of people are like, "Ooh, Javon Baker, he could be their number 1." Like this,
and he could, but I don't know where you're at. But I think Polk has a little bit more of a higher ceiling. I liked his game, Washington, right, with Penix. I think like he did some pretty good things last year. I would lean with him, but again, like I'm not getting crazy over this New England offense. Like it's going to be one of the worst in football. There's going to be a lot of inexperience across the field with the quarterback play, whether it is May or some of these young guys. So to answer your question, I'll probably just like on the pedigree itself, I'll probably say, 8-9 Mitchell. But I think if you are looking for a home run play and somebody who can fall into targets right away, it's probably Polk or even Baker later on.
So to give you an idea, again, my draft grades that I give out, I give a redraft grade, their potential value for their redraft season, and their ceiling for potential future. So Mitchell, I gave a C and a B. C for this year, which C usually means fringe starter, wide receiver 4, maybe wide receiver 3, depending on your league. Running back's kind of more of a 2-3 than a 4-3. But for the Patriots, Polk, C minus, so behind him. Baker a D, but their future potential B and B minus. I actually think that their ceiling isn't too different from Mitchell. So to kind of give you my idea.
Oh, from Mitchell.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, from Mitchell as well. All right. So then in round 3,
just to remind the people of the wide receiver room in New England, though, like Kendrick Bourne coming off an injury, KJ Osborne.
Did you just miss Schuster make this roster?
I think so. I haven't heard, but I'm looking at the depth chart and he's there. So, and he was just
Tyquan Thornton, who they just drafted,
and Demario Douglas, our guy that we got excited about because he was getting 4
and we're not even talking about
targets.
Kayshon Boutte now. Bootie's like probably not even making this roster now.
Yeah,
that was quick.
Rager's on the squad too.
Hey, word of caution. And I tweet this out too because I went through and I went positionally, like the times that a 3rd or 4th round quarterback and past have done anything. So by the way, there was the history. I tweeted out. I forget the exact number. I think it was like somewhere around 17 for the first number, somewhere around 10, and then only like 6 or 7 for the last number. But it was quarterbacks drafted round 3 or later that started 100 games and then threw for 20,000 yards and then threw for 150 touchdowns. Now, mind you, like those are 3 different things, and there's some of those numbers. Some of those quarterbacks did it and not a different number. But at the end of the day, my point being was like of all that. The last one since Joe Montana was drafted. So think about it. That's 1970s, late 70s. The last since Joe Montana was drafted to do all 3 is Russell Wilson. So pause on your quarterback excitement for Rattler and others. And I love the Rattler pick is no risk pick for them. Like just terrific.
I dig it. Yep.
Yeah. Same thing with Jordan Travis. Same thing. No risk. But also additionally, so now I went down the rabbit hole of the running backs. Day 3 running backs drafted since the 2000s. There's been 2 that have finished as RB1. Day 3 wide receivers. Puka Nacua was the first since 2000. The first. There's not going to be another Puka Nacua. I mean, Butte was one. Like, and that's why I brought like the Butte thing. Is like for all the excitement of all these guys, and we're going to talk about some of them probably on another show later, and also like when we get on Sirius XM and stuff like that. But I see people talking about Anthony Gold and who else was brought up? Bob Means, because the Saints need wide receivers. Who else was out there? Jacob Cowling with the 49. And they already drafted a wide receiver before that. But all these guys, like we could be doing the same thing next year and being like, hey, remember how people were briefly excited for a blank wide receiver? So anyway, to come back to this and talk about draft round 3, there's Corley, Jermaine Burton. You know how I feel about him. We'll talk about it a little bit more in depth, but Roman Wilson, Jalen McMillan, you also know that's one of my dudes, and Luke McCaffrey to the Commanders, a little bit of a surprise. But who do you like most? 2 different questions. Who of those do you like most in redraft, and who do you like most in dynasty?
In redraft, it's Roman Wilson. I don't think it's even close.
It is. It's the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you, for everybody that doesn't know, sorry to jump on your step on your thing, but did you hear what they talked about on ESPN? That Mike Tomlin was coaching him up during the bowl.
It got me fired
and
up.
Also, he said he wanted him to go against the number 1 corners. He kept putting them against the tough competition because he liked them that much.
Yeah. Yeah. It was him and I think it was Quinyon Mitchell who were going toe to toe. They both wanted the best competition. Yeah, and it was fun to watch. I remember it, and I was thinking, oh man, I really want the Eagles to get Mitchell. That guy looks like a baller. But yeah, I mean, it's a situation for one, and then it's George Pickens really just there, and that's it. And then mixed in with the fact that Tomlin talked this guy up and wanted this guy right before the draft. After the draft, I saw the same thing that you saw, and it did get me fired up. So, yeah, I love the situation, and he's a guy that I think, after these top guys, like I know Worthy's going to get drafted ahead of him, but I wouldn't be surprised, man. Like if Wilson had a better season than
redraft and
than
dynasty.
Worthy. No, redraft. I think out of
McConkey versus Wilson in Dynasty.
I think I would lean,
but I think it's close.
Yeah, it is close. I think I would lean McConkey.
There's one more. But
I actually how
I feel about Burton.
I think I like him more in Dynasty. Like Dynasty, yeah.
Really? I have him right behind him just because what if they re-sign T. Higgins next year?
That's the caveat.
I know we're speculating. We know Roman Wilson's the 2. We know he's the 2 as of today. He's definitively the 2. And he's the 2 on a team where Mike Tomlin likes you already.
Exactly.
You are the 2. So this is the one I had the biggest struggle with. Dynasty only. I could kind of go both ways. I think something just fell over there. Xavier Legette, I have at 8 on the Panthers. And then I have Roman Wilson at 9, just because I see a bigger ceiling with Legette. But if you want to take Roman Wilson, I'm not going to fault you for it. It's just I could see Legette being the 1 for Bryce Young and the Panthers. I love what they're doing. I've mentioned this before. They have Deontay Johnson and Legette. They're getting guys who can separate. Adam Thielen's still hanging around. But as for this year, Roman Wilson's far in front of Legette. But Dynasty, I slightly lean Legette.
Yeah. I can't fight you on that. I totally agree. I think Legette
is. If you did, I wouldn't even hate you for it.
No, it's just the better talent. I think when you're comparing the 2 wide receivers, like Legette has more. He's got a higher ceiling, and the situation it could take a little bit. Yeah, you said it, Roman Wilson. And I just think from the draft yesterday with the series draft that this guy, and I know things are going to happen as we get closer and closer. You're going to start to hear people talk him up. Oh, he's the number 2. Already he looks like the number 1. Maybe he's the number 1. He's going to climb up draft boards. But if you're an early drafter in best ball or whatever the heck you do with your buddies at this moment of drafting, he's an absolute steal. You're going to be able to get him in 13, 14. He's going to be one of the big risers. But yeah, from a dynasty standpoint, I'll probably look at some of the other guys in there. And the Burton thing, you're right. It's just we speculate. Maybe Higgins is there, maybe he's not, but you could potentially have a guy that's a number 2 in an offense with Joe Burrow, and that's exciting too. So I would have him on your short list for your rookie only drafts.
So before we get out of here, there's a few more names I want to bring up, and then again we're going to be live on SiriusXM 2:00 tomorrow. Tuesday and Thursday, actually Wednesday as well. Meaney is just, I will not be there. It'll be the great Dane Martinez, so look for that. Should I retweet this? Because there's somebody I want to talk about.
Yes.
I'm mad this didn't get, I don't usually get mad that things don't get more likes and retweets, but this one I did. When the Dolphins drafted Jalen Wright, I put out a gift, and a gift shows the Dolphins is what I said, the Dolphins welcoming Jalen Wright, and it's Barry Allen Flash, Kid Flash, an original Flash hugging young Flash, future Flash, Kid Flash. Well, it's future Kid Flash because there's 2 Kid Flashes depending on which way. People get what I'm saying, and they're hugging him. I was like, this deserved 100 more retweets than it got. It got 47 likes. I'm just gonna retweet it right now. I'm not gonna let you. I don't like retweeting. I hate when people retweet themselves, but I'm doing it myself. I don't even care. I'm doing it live on the show because Jalen Wright is there. Jalen Wright in Dynasty, meaning Jalen Wright can step in, not as a rookie because he's got Mostert and Achane, but if Mostert got hurt, and then 2025, he is going to step into the Mostert role. He is going to be, if you'd argued with me and you said, Jake, you're dumb. I know Marshawn Lloyd's great. I know Blake Corum is potentially great. I know Jonathon Brooks is the greatest talent in this draft class, but I am still taking Wright and Dynasty over all of them at running back because he's going to be on the Dolphins and he's going to be the Dolphins' potential lead in a timeshare, but who cares about a Dolphins timeshare? Potential lead next year. You want to take Jalen Wright? I say sure, but I would trade back to do so. But Jalen Wright, I have him 3, and I really want to put him in front of Benson. Well, because I just know James Conner's getting hurt, and I know that Benson's taking over next year. I'm speculating Jalen Wright is going to, and that's the difference. I go Brooks, Benson, Wright. But I think Wright, you could argue, could be the best running back in Dynasty.
Absolutely. It's a guy that averaged 7 yards per carry. He's going to fit in perfectly. I just retweeted your tweet, by the way. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, speed. Of course, this is like right away. Of course, when I was watching the draft and it happened, I was like, obviously, they're going to take this guy. He's a burner, and they already have burners, and it didn't matter to McDaniels. So, yeah, I mean, Achane is a guy that great in moments. You hope that let's see what he can do over a full course of his season. But with Miami's thinking here, and it's been like that from day one, hasn't it? Since he's moved over. Mm-hmm. Let's get Raheem Mostert. Let's get Jeff Wilson. Let's draft Achane.
Well, so then
let's draft Wright.
For redraft, I'm super low apparently as of right now, but at redraft, I have him behind Lloyd and Ray Davis and Corum and Algier, because those are definitive backups, next man up. He's third man up right now.
So needs some things to work his way.
Yeah. Okay. A little bit more from this 4th round.
I was looking forward to seeing what you were going to say between him and Benson, because I know you're high on Benson. I thought maybe Benson would be 2 for you, but I thought
it's just
Wright would
the
be
job should be Benson's next year.
Yeah,
it should, and it's not split. It should be his job.
It's his job. Yeah, it's nobody else there. Yeah.
So round 4, wide receiver wise, we had Troy Franklin gets paired back up with Bo Nix. Baker, as we already mentioned. Were you surprised
by his fall, Franklin? Were you surprised at all?
I'm not a Franklin fan. That's one of the ones I was surprised by. Rattler's fall, and you kind of but I was not surprised. I was lower on Franklin than most people. And that's not just because of the school that he came from, which what's the hit rate of those wide receivers from Oregon? But anyway,
not high.
So Franklin gets paired up with
least.
Yeah, he gets paired up with Bo Nix. You got Baker with the Patriots I mentioned. Devontae Walker goes to the Ravens. And what does everybody immediately do? Oh, the The Ravens got a deep threat for Lamar Jackson. Stop. They still have Zay Flowers. It's Zay Flowers, and who the hell cares about everybody else? There's your answer in Devontae Walker. He's going to pop off, maybe be Will Fuller, but not Will Fuller as the lead wide receiver. Yeah. And then running backs, galore, Shipley to your guys, Irvin to the Buccaneers, pass catcher. Ray Davis already mentioned. He's just another James Cook, honestly. Love Garendo. Oh, my God. If you told me stylistically the fit for Isaiah, I say Isaac almost. I'm just making up a new word for the first name. Isaac Garendo, and he ends up on this team in that style with his one cut and oh, my God, next year? And I'm going to have a ton of Garendo in Dynasty, by the way, because if something happened to CMC. But anyway, Braylon Allen to the Jets. Big dude, bowling ball, maybe takes a few touches away, but more about if anything happens to Breece Hall. And then, of course, I mentioned Cowing to the 49ers, but because I made it so easy for you, there's only two here. It's Franklin and Baker. You just asked me. I guess you were surprised by the Franklin fall, and do you think that he can step in and be the two ahead of Mims?
I wasn't super surprised. I did think that he would go in the third round. So I guess maybe I was at the end of the day because we were writing the blurbs up at FTN Fantasy, and I was waiting for.
I compared him to Torrey Smith to give you an idea why I was lower than most. I think that's Torrey Smith.
That's a good comparison too. Yeah, I think that I wasn't super high on him. Like a lot of people were like, "Oh, I hope the Bills." It's like, I don't think the Bills should be after him at all. But at the end of the day, I think the situation's pretty good for him in Denver, right? I mean, it's just. We were talking about Cortland Sutton, I think, on the Sirius show. It's just kind of him, and he doesn't even really want to be there. So it's, I mean, anytime that Sean Payton, does things in the draft, I kind of, circle. Although Mims didn't, we'll see if he kind of pans out this year as a guy that he traded up for last year. But I think the situation's okay. Maybe he can be. Maybe I think best case is. Maybe he's a flex play for you at moments this year as a wide receiver 4 or something. But I mean, I'm not getting super excited about him. But in terms of wide receivers and landing spots, that's a pretty good one. I like Purcell too. I thought San Fran had a really good draft, and they always seem to have good drafts. For the future, right? Next year, Purcell's a guy that we're talking about over Franklin. But I could see Franklin maybe being more valuable to you in a redraft league this year.
So as we get out of here. There's a very easy answer, and if you get it wrong, I'm just going to end the show on you, Meaney. But I can't end the show, so you're going to end it on me. I'm just kidding. Here's what it is. Round 6 and 7, almost irrelevant. Rarely is going to happen. But there's a breakdown again over the Athletic. Dynasty ranks are up. You can see everything, the draft grades, the explanations for everything. But round 5, there is one specific name. I've already said his name. Here's who went in round 5, outside of Jordan Travis and Spencer Rattler, the quarterbacks. These are the wide receivers and running backs. Gould, Estime, Aeneas Smith, who went to your guys. You know it's not him. Thrash, Ali, Tracy, Robinson, Memes, and Isaiah Davis. There is one specific name that I think that can make noise this year because of where he fell. Actually, there's 2, but it's a 1 and then a 2 far behind him. Went to a team with a brand new running back, although he's not very brand new at this point. There's another giant hit for you. He's also giant. Yeah. There's another giant hit
As you said, there's a giant hint for you. And I was like, it's a giant. It's Tracy Jr., no?
No. Rasheen Ali. With the
Rasheen. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. No. I do like Tracy number 2 at this, but Ali, are you with it? A lot of Ali? A lot of Ali? Even a redraft? Because it's the dude in the Ravens that's always way down the depth chart. And it's he ends up being the dude.
Yeah. He certainly could be the dude. Injuries could happen, right? At this point of Henry's career. So, yeah. I mean, I thought you were going to talk
I like Tracy too.
Yeah, this is
I just think Tracy's timeshare. I like him a lot. Nice pass catcher.
Yeah.
Converted wide receiver, by the way. But Antonio Gibson, he's got some of those feels. Meaney, follow him at Chris Meaney. He's got some great hockey picks. As you said, he told you to go get that Rangers sweep line. And hopefully you enjoyed that and enjoy his stuff. And over at FTN, by the way, you can check out everything post-draft over there as well. Brand new shiny site-ish, because everything's under the FTN Fantasy umbrella now. Over the Athletic, reminder, drop stuff into the comments on the YouTube channel, because I don't know who's already done it on iTunes. But any video, so not past ones. I'm not going to go look at past ones. But today's, next week's, going to start doing giveaways. Give it this giant box of Funkos and stuff like that. There's some other stuff in there, too. I forget that. I think there's a T-shirt or something. I don't remember. I got to go through that box. There's so much, as you can see, there's so much crap that I didn't even make it up behind me. But we're back next week on Tuesday. Say it with me. It's the second day. Monday, 1 day, Tuesday, 2 day. It's the second
Wednesday,
day.
Monday?
With
What?
Yes, there you go. With Ian Hartitz at 10 a.m. We'll see you guys later.
Cheers.